You're alone in an elevator. The lights flicker. A strange sound fills the silence. Harmless, right? What if it's not? What if that elevator isn't just going up or down, but playing on your deepest phobias? These 3 true stories will make you look at your next elevator ride in a terrifyingly new light. Hello, and welcome to No Sleep Tonight. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps this channel grow and keeps these true horror stories coming. All right, let's dive into 3 terrifying elevator stories you'll never forget. The Architect's Nightmare. I had spent years working on that building. Every line of the blueprint, every calculation of the structure, every finishing touch. I knew it all. I had overseen the elevators myself, making sure they were efficient, modern, and safe. They were supposed to be perfect. One evening, long after most of the office staff had gone home, I stayed behind to finish some reports. It was late, nearly midnight, and the building felt hollow without the usual noise of people moving around. Only the low hum of the lights filled the air. When I finally finished, I grabbed my coat and walked to the lobby elevator. The building was dark, and only a few floor lights lit the halls. I pressed the button, stepped inside, and hit the ground floor. It should have been an ordinary ride. At first it was. The doors slid shut smoothly. The motor hummed. Then the lights inside flickered once, then again. And that's when I felt it. The walls seemed closer, just slightly. At first I thought it was my imagination, fatigue from the long day. But as the seconds ticked by, it became undeniable. The space around me was tightening. The ceiling looked a little lower. The floor felt smaller. I pressed my hand against one wall. It was cold steel, solid, but it felt nearer than I remembered. My chest tightened. My breath caught. I hadn't felt that kind of fear in years, not since I was a child. When I was 8, some older kids had locked me in a closet as a prank. I remember the air getting hot and still, the walls pressing against me, the rising panic. I thought I had buried that memory, but in that elevator, it all came rushing back. I pressed the emergency stop. Nothing. I hit the alarm button over and over, but no sound came out. The panel stayed lit, as if everything was working normally. The air felt heavier. I could see my reflection in the steel doors, sweat beading on my forehead, chest heaving as I tried to breathe. I backed into the corner, convinced that if the walls kept closing in, I'd be crushed. It couldn't have been more than a minute, but it felt like an hour. My ears rang, my vision blurred. I started pounding on the doors with my fists, yelling, though I knew no one was left in the building to hear me. Then, as suddenly as it started, the ride ended. The elevator chimed softly. The doors slid open, and I was standing in the lobby. Everything looked perfectly normal. Bright lights, empty space. The elevator behind me, as wide and clean as it had always been. I staggered out, gasping for air, leaning against the reception desk to keep from collapsing. My legs trembled so badly, I could barely stand. The next morning, I called maintenance. I demanded the logs for that elevator. They sent me the report. No anomalies, no power surges, no faults in the system. According to the data, my ride had been perfectly ordinary, but I know what I felt. The shrinking walls, the suffocating air, the memory of being trapped as a child, clawing its way back into my mind. The worst part, that elevator was my design. I had created it, and yet, that night, it felt like it turned against me, like it knew exactly how to break me. The CEO's descent. People always said nothing could shake me. I was the one who stayed calm when markets collapsed, when deals went sideways, when competitors tried to corner us. I built a reputation on control. People believed I didn't have weaknesses, but I did. And it was one I worked very hard to keep hidden. I had vertigo, not the kind that made me stumble every day, but the kind that turned my stomach when I looked down from a great height. Even standing near a window on the upper floors of my own building made my palms sweat. I never admitted it to anyone. One night, after a late board meeting, I was the last one left in the office. It was close to midnight. The building was silent, the city lights glittering below. I walked toward the executive elevator, the one only a few of us could access, the one that went straight down to the private garage. The doors opened smoothly, like always. I stepped in, pressed the garage level, and leaned back against the railing. I was already thinking about the drive home. That's when the floor dropped. It wasn't subtle. 1 second I was standing, the next I was falling. The elevator plummeted beneath me, and my body lifted from the floor like gravity had turned against me. My stomach slammed into my throat. I grabbed the railing with both hands, heart racing, certain the cables had snapped. The floor indicator above the doors flickered wildly. Numbers blurred, rushing downward faster than I could track. My ears popped from the sudden pressure shift. I braced myself for impact, for the crash that would end it all, but it never came. The elevator jerked violently, throwing me against the wall, then held steady. For just a moment, I thought it was over. My legs shook so hard, I could barely stay standing. I tried to hit the emergency button, but my hand slipped from the sweat on my palms. Before I could steady myself, the elevator dropped again. Faster, longer. My knees gave out. I clung to the railing, my entire body trembling. My vision tunneled. I felt like I was plunging straight into the earth. Then, another stop. My teeth slammed together. My ribs ached from the impact. The silence in between drops was worse than the falling itself. Every second stretched, waiting for the next plunge. And sure enough, it came. Over and over. Drop, stop, drop. I tried screaming, but my voice was drowned out by the ringing in my ears. The air felt thinner with each fall, like I couldn't breathe deeply enough. My entire body was locked in terror, the kind I hadn't felt since I was a child. And then, without warning, it ended. The indicator froze. The motor hummed again, steady, calm. The doors opened, and I was back where I had started, the top floor. The elevator hadn't gone anywhere. I stumbled out into the hallway, gasping for air, knees shaking so badly I could barely stand. I leaned against the wall, trying to make sense of it. Later that night, security checked the system. They swore nothing had happened. According to the logs, the elevator had never moved. It hadn't dropped, hadn't malfunctioned, hadn't even left the floor. But I know what I felt. The weightlessness, the stomach-turning freefall, the endless plunges that seemed designed to break me. I never told anyone. The next morning, I simply stopped using the elevator. I took the stairs, all 23 flights. Employees thought it was part of some new discipline, another way to prove my toughness. Some even joked about it. But the truth was darker. I didn't care what they thought. I wasn't going to step inside that elevator again. Because that night, it felt like the car hadn't just malfunctioned. It had known my weakness, and it had forced me to live it over and over until I broke. The historian's haunting. I've spent most of my life buried in archives, newspapers, old photographs, My work as a historian isn't glamorous, but I like it. I like piecing together events people have forgotten. One project pulled me deep into the history of a series of fires in early 20th century factories. One of the worst took place in a building downtown. Dozens of workers trapped when flames spread through the upper floors. Reports said the elevators failed, leaving people stranded. Some died waiting inside, choking on smoke before anyone could reach them. The building was still standing, though renovated. Its facade was modernized, the lobby bright and polished, but its skeleton was the same. I arranged a visit to see it for myself, to walk the place where it happened. When I arrived, the guard at the desk was friendly. He signed me in, gave me a visitor pass, and pointed me toward the elevators. I remember thinking how ordinary it looked, like any other office block. I told myself the past was gone. Whatever happened here was history. But when the elevator doors closed around me, something shifted. At first, it was the temperature. The air grew hot, heavy, almost stifling. I loosened my collar and checked the panel. The elevator was moving normally, but sweat began to bead on my forehead. Then came the sound, faint at first, whispers, like voices pressed against the walls. I froze, trying to make out the words, but they blended into each other. A cough echoed, then another, louder now, panicked, mixed with the scrape of shoes against metal. And then screams, high-pitched, desperate screams, the kind you don't forget. My stomach twisted. I slammed the emergency button, but the panel didn't respond. My reflection in the steel doors looked pale, terrified, like I wasn't even myself anymore. The smell hit next, acrid, choking, smoke, thick, suffocating smoke, even though I could see clearly. My throat tightened, my eyes watered. I pressed my sleeve over my mouth, instinctively searching for air that wasn't there. I thought of the reports I had read, workers pounding on the doors, begging to be let out, some collapsing on the floor before help arrived. And in that moment, I swear, I wasn't just remembering, I was living it. The elevator wasn't showing me an illusion. It was making me relive their deaths. The ride couldn't have been longer than a minute, but it stretched into eternity. I clawed at the doors, desperate to get out. The voices grew louder, the heat unbearable, and I was sure I would suffocate just like they did. Then the doors slid open. The lobby was cool, bright, silent. I stumbled out, coughing, gasping for air. A security guard rushed over, alarmed by my state. But when I told him what had happened, his face went blank. He insisted there had been no alarms, no smoke, nothing unusual on the cameras. The elevator had gone from the lobby to the third floor, with no problems at all. But I know what I felt. I finished my research, but I never went back to that building. I couldn't. That elevator hadn't just malfunctioned. It had dragged the past into the present, forcing me to experience a tragedy I had only been studying on paper. And I can't shake the thought that it wasn't random. It felt deliberate, as if the elevator itself wanted me to understand, or maybe to remember, what really happened inside those walls. These are just 3 stories, but they prove one thing. You don't need ghosts or monsters for horror. Thanks for watching No Sleep Tonight. I'll see you in the next video. And until then, sleep well.